It's been 6 months since I started using the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I've got some things to say. What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, BMAC. And if this is your first time here to this channel, welcome, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you smash that subscribe button with all notifications turned on so that you never miss another video on this channel. And if you've been here before, or if you're already subscribed, welcome back. So yes, indeed, today we are talking about the iPhone 13 Pro Max and what I think of it 6 months later. And before we go any further, I do need to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Apple for actually sending over an iPhone 13 Pro Max in Sierra Blue for me to be able to check out. So Apple, thank you, I appreciate you. But 6 months, that's a decent amount of time to spend with a device, and that gives me a lot of time to create some thoughts. So let's start things out as we often do, talking about the design of the iPhone 13 Pro and how things are looking on the outside. Realistically, not a whole heck of a lot has changed here with the iPhone 13 Pro design compared to the iPhone 12 Pro design. So naturally, things are almost identical here with the iPhone 13 Pro compared to the previous generation. Almost nothing has changed, besides the fact that the iPhone 13 Pro is ever so slightly thicker and ever so slightly heavier. There are still two things in particular I would personally like to see on future Pro models of the iPhone. Two things that are just my kind of style, what I look for in an iPhone. The first of which should come as no surprise: matte squared off edges instead of the shiny edges we have now. I'm just thinking a brushed stainless steel look would be, I'm like salivating thinking about it, but the idea of having brushed stainless steel sides instead of shiny stainless steel sides, I'm liking that idea. And second being a flush camera housing, meaning a flush camera with the back of the device so that we don't have any kind of protruding camera lens, kind of like we had back on the iPhone 5. But this is totally personal to me here. I do think the current iPhone 13 Pro design is unbelievably beautiful, but with the current iPhone 13 Pro design, we do now have 5 different colors to choose from. We do have silver, gold, graphite, Sierra Blue, and the newest addition to the iPhone 13 Pro color family, Alpine Green. But no matter what color you choose on the iPhone 13 Pro, I do think the lineup this year is probably the prettiest lineup of iPhones we've ever had. But just picture this as a midnight black iPhone 14 Pro device, brushed edges. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it, my goodness. So we'll see what happens there in the future, but one place where I do think the iPhone is pretty darn close to perfect as it possibly gets is with the camera system. And oh my goodness, does the iPhone 13 Pro have a camera system worth talking about. The front camera is a 12 megapixel wide-angle selfie camera with an f2.2 aperture, capable of up to 4K 60 frames per second HDR video. And the rear camera system is a triple 12 megapixel camera system composed of an f2.8 tele lens, an f1.5 wide lens, and an f1.8 ultra wide lens. The rear camera system also being capable of filming up to 4K 60 frames per second HDR video. And I'm not gonna keep you waiting, I'm just gonna say it. This is easily my favorite camera system on a smartphone ever. From the natural shallow depth of field I can get with the wide camera, to the even better low light performance of the ultra wide camera, and the ability to actually take macro shots with the ultra wide camera now, to the beautiful and sometimes just downright astonishing night mode shots that you could take. There's not a whole lot to be able to complain about. With the deep fusion detail, the color profiles that you could use now to tweak your preferred kind of photo taking, and even Pro RAW, which unlocks your creative potential while taking advantage of all that Apple image processing. The photos that an iPhone takes, especially the iPhone 13 Pro, are so darn good now, you can almost tell when a photo has been taken on an iPhone, on the iPhone 13 Pro in particular. For me, the only place where I think the current iPhone camera system is lacking is with portrait mode. It is not in the least bit that portrait mode is bad on the iPhone, it's just that it's unreliable, and when it works great, but when it doesn't work, believe me, it doesn't work. In some cases, the portrait mode results that the iPhone 13 comes up with are downright unusable, especially when you compare them to what the portrait modes of other phones are able to pull off, those other phones without a LiDAR scanner. But let's talk about another integral part of the iPhone experience, and that's the display. And we finally have a pretty big upgrade this year as it relates to the iPhone 13 Pro display. For those of you who know me, you know how vocal I've been in the past about pretty much demanding that the iPhone get a 120 Hz refresh rate, and yes, we finally have it. And it's everything I hoped it would be. And I love how the iPhone 13 Pro utilizes an adaptive refresh rate, which is perfect for providing that 120 Hz experience while also preserving battery life, which we'll talk more about in just a second. And I guess that technology right there, optimizing 120 Hz and making sure it doesn't so negatively impact the battery, is what perhaps maybe took so long. And if that is the case, I'll accept it because we finally have it now. And now I could be calm and sleep good at night and be less angry on Twitter. But besides that, the same amazing iPhone display experience we've had for the last couple of years. It's an HDI certified display with amazing colors, OLED technology with a 2,000,000:1 contrast ratio, and a display that gets very bright and looks even better in 120 Hz obviously now. We get 1,000 nits of brightness, which has been absolutely incredible in brightly lit situations, even in direct sunlight, which allows me to use this phone outside in the full sun. And on top of that, the notch is 20% smaller this year, which brings us one step closer to that notchless future I hope we get. But for now, take 20% less. I like it. It is important to point out that the notch is ever so slightly taller or deeper, depending on how you look at it, but that is far less noticeable than how much narrower the notch actually is. But it should come as no surprise that all these great things I've been talking about are pretty much possible in part because of the unbelievable performance power that the iPhone 13 Pro is now packing. In the iPhone 13 Pro lineup, we are getting the A15 Bionic chip. You could film in ProRes on the iPhone 13 Pro now, and let me just tell you, that codec eats through storage space like it's nothing. So even though with cloud storage options and Apple streaming options now, I still would urge you to get as high of a storage space as you can afford, because if you do plan on filming in ProRes, you're gonna need it. But all these specs really just make the iPhone 13 Pro an absolute performance beast. I'm able to create photos and videos with noticeably more responsiveness, and edits and export times are far less than they've been in the past. It's almost like everything I want to do on the iPhone 13 Pro is nearly seamless. I've even started to do some more robust mobile gaming testing and could probably confidently say one of, if not the fastest, we're putting an S in front of things now, the fastest smartphone experience I've had in recent years. The iPhone 13 Pro is now the culmination of all the performance fine-tuning that Apple has built into the iPhone over the last 10 plus years, which makes the iPhone what it is now. And that goes hand in hand with the battery life of the iPhone 13 Pro, with battery numbers that should probably raise your eyebrows. Just like it's been with the Pro line of iPhones over the last few years, I could once again confidently say that the iPhone 13 Pro here is also an absolute tank when it comes to battery life. I seem to average double-digit screen on time around 11 hours and up, with still some juice left over in the battery tank to do whatever else it is I need to do. Think about that. That's actually rather incredible. That's with a 120 Hz refresh rate. That's with my brightness shot way up. I have my brightness way higher than the typical human probably should have. It's a miracle I still have my retinas. And that's with more than average performance-intensive tasks, such as photo editing, video editing, and mobile gaming than the typical user would have, still giving me double-digit screen-on battery life. That's astonishing. Everything is working together to provide you with a device that just works. And works when you need it to work, and works in ways you probably never even thought were possible, until now. Which I guess brings me to my conclusion, and what my final thoughts are on the iPhone 13 Pro. Simply put, I love this iPhone. I can go on record and say that all things considered, I think this is the best iPhone I've ever used as it relates to design, to the performance, to the cameras. You have an absolute beast and an incredible smartphone that is just the best it's ever been. If you want a device that almost does it all, I cannot recommend the iPhone 13 Pro enough. And for those of you who want a max size display, like I have right here, it's the largest, most luxurious, most powerful iPhone to date, and it's darn near perfect. And with that having been said, I am kind of getting a little nervous now, because if Apple keeps making this thing even better than it already is, at some point I might be jobless. There'll be nothing left to actually critique. What a thought. I will see you guys in my next video. I truly wonder what excavators and like what civilization in general is gonna think of this phone when they find it as a fossil in a couple hundred years. Or maybe we'll still be using it in a couple hundred years, because that's how powerful it is.